But first, we start with a big announcement, Mike. Joel Bitonio is hanging him up.
Yeah, after a storied career, he was drafted in the second round of the 2014 draft. 12 years in Cleveland, Joel Bitonio officially announcing his retirement. He's going to speak to the media at 11 o'clock this morning. So if we get any more information on that from the press conference, obviously we'll break in the second hour and discuss that. But, guys, Joel's been a staple of the Cleveland Browns. During his tenure here in 12 seasons, he made 7 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro selections, twice the first-team All-Pro, 3 times as a second-team All-Pro. He won the Good Guy Media Award 6 times. He played in 178 career games, which is the most of any Brown in the post-1999 era over his final 9 seasons. He missed just 1 game due to injury. So when you look back at the totality of Bitonio's career, Bull, Jason G., what are you going to remember most about Joel Bitonio, and when it's all said and done, do you think he ends up in the Hall of Fame?
Jason, you knew him the best, or know him the best. Go ahead.
Not dead.
Yeah, he's not dead. He's just retired. Go ahead.
Joe, this is a great day for Joel to go out on one team, and he was exactly what you would want a veteran to be in the locker room. He's exactly what you want him to be. Yeah. He's a great leader. He's a great locker room guy. He's a guy who knows his assignments, meets his obligations every single day. He became a very much respected voice in mind. He was part of that leadership council with the previous coaching staff where they would go to him with like, hey, this is what we're thinking. How do you think this is going to go over? Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like, that's how much respect he had. You know, the Hall of Fame thing is tough because he didn't really play for a winner. Yeah. And it's hard for guards to make. Yeah. So I would love to sit here and pound the table and tell you he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He's probably just short.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, he's probably not in the Hall of Fame, but it's really through no fault of his own. It was some of the circumstances around him. And he could have forced his way out at times, and he could have left, and he didn't. He chose to hang in there. And I think part of that is because of how close he is with Joe Thomas. And Joe chose to play his whole career here. He could have left at the end. Joel and I actually had conversations last year where I advocated go somewhere else next year. Like, if you think you could still play, go see what life is like on the other side.
And he was considering it.
I think at times he was considering it. Yeah, I think at times he gave it some thought of, you know, what would it be like to go play for the Eagles or the 49ers, whatever. Go find another team and just see what it's like. And Aditi's talked about that on the show before, about guys at the end of their career when they play for a team that doesn't have a lot of success, just go see what the other side lives like and see how it can be done. Ultimately, he chose not to do that. He walks away. He walks away on his own accord, which I think is great for him. He could have played. He could have kept playing. He could have played in Cleveland. He could have played elsewhere. And he chose to go out on his terms. I know prior to last season, he felt like he had one more year left in him. And Zach and I have talked about this a couple of times. I think he felt better this season than he expected to feel. So I think that's where some of the decision came down to of like, could I do this again? And it's unfortunate with where the Browns are at and sort of their rebuild. I don't know that he would have the appetite to go through that again, and I don't blame him for that. Yeah. Which is why I sort of advocated going elsewhere. But ultimately, he's a great guy. He's a great teammate. He was great in the locker room. And he will sorely, sorely be missed just from the leadership vacuum that is left behind him now.
G. Bush.
Yeah, so first and foremost, hats off to Joel Bitonio. He went out the way that Joe Thomas went out. And I got a little bit of a special place where I put guys that play offensive and defensive linemen because, and even a little bit more offensive linemen because it's really a thankless job. It's really a job that people don't understand how tough it is on your body. Most people that play O or D linemen, they after they're playing, you look at their hands, you look at their knees, you watch how they walk. They get, Joe Thomas had hip replacements right afterwards. And for him to be able to play 12 years in the trenches and you having hand-to-hand combat and to play at that level is super commendable. When you take a look at his resume, he's going to be a Ring of Honor member. He's going to be, whatever. They might as well put him in right now if they want to. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think it's difficult to make the Hall of Fame as a guard or offensive lineman, especially interior lineman. You got to be really special. And on top of that, you have to have the wins and some of the postseason accolades, and the winning really goes into that. So I don't think he'll get into that But I think for what the Cleveland Browns have done, and for what the Cleveland Browns, and I look at it from a separate lens, he's one of those guys who spent his whole career in one spot. He's one of those guys, only one game missed in his whole life is crazy. And, I'll always remember that he was part of those teams where, you had a guy who the Browns at one point in time had a top 3 offensive line, had a top 3 to 5 offensive line. And for about 3 to 4 years, those guys together, whether it was Joel Bitonio, whether it was Wyatt Teller, whether it was, Poaches, and before that Treader, they had with Nick Chubb kind of one of those things where the Cleveland Browns had an identity for a little bit. Cleveland Browns were known as a physical team. And so I always remember those days where it was like, hey, we got Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, and if we got the lead, we about to hammer you over the top of the head. We're going to make sure y'all going to have to use them timeouts. So for me, I salute Joel Bitonio and what he gave to the city, gave that energy, that effort, that integrity, and I appreciate him for what he did. And he went out the way we all want to go out, on top, and that's in that terms is playing for one team.
Joel Bitonio as a person, and Jason, you knew him better than I don't know what I keep saying knew him. You know him better than I do, and I haven't covered him much in person the last few years.
Yeah.
But when I was working at the radio station and we would be at training camp every day for a number of years, he would sit down and do interviews with us all the time.
Yep.
Whenever you needed somebody, Joel Bitonio would come out. He was always nice. He was always respectful. Listen, I don't know the man really personally, but every interaction I ever had with him, most on air, once in a blue moon, off the air, he was always a hell of a guy.
Yep.
Like, super nice guy, very down to earth. He was never somebody that big timed you and acted like, oh, I'm some special guy, whatever. He did his job in an excellent manner. I mean, how many guards are in the Hall of Fame? There's not that many.
Nope.
He's probably not going to go into the Hall of Fame. If he does, it might be years later or whatever. But, like, he's in the Hall of Very Good. Yeah. If you're making an all-century Browns team, he's 100% on it.
He should be in that Browns Ring of Honor in the stadium. I can tell you that.
100%. He'll be on that almost immediately.
Yeah, that's easy.
I mean, in my lifetime, he's probably the second best offensive lineman they've had besides Joe Thomas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know the Browns as well in the 80s and the 90s. I know the names, but I wasn't following him as closely. But
I hope he's a guy that hangs around the organization.
He should. It would be good for the organization to have a guy of his caliber.
Ambassador type on the younger side. We saw, obviously, Doug Deacon was the color guy for years, played here in the 70s and 80s. Joel. Joe is more national and doing more national things.
Right.
And Joel could do that if he wanted. I really don't know what's next for him. He could coach if he wanted to. He's got a great mind for football. Some guys that interest them.
He'd be a good analyst.
I think he'd be great at whatever he wants to do.
Yeah,
but it would be nice if he was an ambassador type for the Browns.
Yeah, that would be great.
They need
He's not going to
someone
stay
like that.
here, is he?
No, I don't think so.
He lives in Vegas?
He's a West Coast guy. I mean, they still have a home here.
Yeah, right.
And I think he'll be back. I mean, that's the beauty about the NFL. It's 17 days a year. So you can. He could be a figurehead, ambassador, goodwill type guy.
Absolutely.
That as this organization goes through whatever this is they're going through, as they're trying to put the wheels back on, as they're trying to find their way, he's a guy who could create goodwill within the community, within the organization, is sort of that connector. I hope it works.
So crazy. It's like, he's one of the last vestiges from that era. Like, we did the 1-31, and then the Browns went on a trajectory, and, they drafted Baker, and, he's not here no more. Then they, Kevin Stefanski won 2 coaches a year. He's not here no more.
Miles gone.
And Nick Chubb, and now Joel and Teller. So it's one of those things when you're in the battle, you just but now you sit back and you can reflect and look at it and say, man, it really is a different team.
Is Jerry Jeudy the longest tenured Browns offensive player?
DeJuan
Jones, and that's crazy.
Is that the same? Weren't they the same year?
This is Jones' third season in Cleveland, so it'll be Judy's third, so that's
season.
the same.
Wow.
I don't think they have anybody on their offense that's been here for more than 3 years that I can think of. Huh?
Yeah,
Deshaun.
Deshaun.
No,
Oh, Deshaun.
Cedric Tillman.
How easy we forget.
Oh, yeah, and Cedric Tillman will be his
Tillman.
fourth year.
We'll see. We'll
Deshaun
see if
Smith.
Tillman's here or not.
That's
Denzel Ward is the only player left, I think, that was here before the 2020s. Is that
right.
correct?
Right.
He was the 18
Right.
draft class.
Yep. That's man.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Our Lads depth chart right now.
Yeah.
Cedric Tillman and Deshaun are the only guy, unless one of these like offensive lineman practice squad guys have been here.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. Yeah.
Denzel Ward is now the longest tenured Brown. 2018 was Delpit 2019.
I think
No,
that
Delpit was
2020.
20. It was a Berry draft pick, so it had to be either 20 or
So
20.
so Ward is the last guy pre-Barry Stefanski, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable when you
That
put it that
is.
way.
Yeah.
That is.
That I can think of.
I mean, the Browns at one point in time went from like one of the older teams, like, you know, to like now it's just like, man, like all that whole vestige is gone. Like to think that Deshaun Watson is the elder statesman is like, man, like that's just that's crazy, right?
And
like,
I think that's what took so much out of Joel.
Yeah.
And probably why some of those other guys.
Yeah.
First of all, they were tight with Baker, which, I mean, guys come and go, so that's no big deal.
Yeah.
But Joel kind of alluded to this in his goodbye letter, that like they made the playoffs and they felt like they were on the upswing and they had this nucleus of guys and they had Miles, they had Nick. You thought you had your guy in Baker, and Joel was only about, I think he said it was his 7th year in the league, and now Wyatt's a Pro Bowler, and you feel like you got this thing rolling now and it's going in the right direction and everything's great and here we go, we're about to take off. And then obviously they make the trade and Deshaun comes in and the whole thing falls apart. And how deflating that has to be as a player to feel like you were right on the verge, you were right there. And this isn't to litigate against any, this is strictly from Joel's perspective. I'm not talking about any of the quarterback stuff right now, just from Joel's perspective. To feel like you were so close and then have the whole thing unravel on you. Do you really have the appetite at this stage of your career to go through it again?
no. Like,
Look at the best player, the recent Browns best players. Joe Thomas never played in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Joel Bitonio played 3-1-1.
Yeah.
Miles Garrett played 3-1-1.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb made the playoffs with the Texans last year, so he's played in, what, 4? Did the Texans lose in the first round? I can't even remember.
They
Texans?
didn't advance.
Yeah.
I don't remember them.
It was a wild card.
So Nick Chubb played in 4, I think, and 1-1. Or no, he wasn't in the year they made the playoffs with Joe Flacco. He wasn't in it.
Man.
He wasn't
Yeah, he
there
was
that
hurt.
year.
He was
So he's played 3-1-1.
You couldn't
And
have-
Bitonio 3-1-1.
You couldn't have told me this. I remember the night that they traded for Odell Beckham Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I could have swore up and down. You couldn't have told me we wasn't going to no Super Bowl. You got to think. Baker had just came off like the touchdown record as a rookie.
Yeah.
You found Nick Chubb. You had Odell and Jarvis. You had David Njoku and Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward looked like he was crazy. And we had a top 3 O-line.
And people were camping out in line at the Muni lot to get in the night before, and they got the crap beat out of them by the Titans. And
Oh, God, they got destroyed in that
That
game.
was one of the most deflating games of my life. And then I've been through a few of them because the Dallas game with Deshaun Watson that next year was deflating. But wow.
Speaking